Hi, I'm Carol Reynolds, and this is Windnotes for the Dallas Winds. And I have the opportunity to greet and speak with Kevin Day, who is our featured composer as part of this big upcoming concert of a relatively new piece called Concerto for Wind Ensemble. And I I don't know you very well because we've not had a chance to meet. And the way I've been able to encounter your music is online, which is good, but it's not the same. So if you could just jump in and tell people about you, your path, and this really fabulous piece, brilliant piece, really, that you've created and given a very traditional name to. So I'm very eager to hear about it.
Yeah, well, sure thing. Concerto for Wind Ensemble is a piece that I've was working on for about 2 years, and so it's a piece that comprises a lot of the interest and a lot of the areas that I grew up in. I'm originally from the Arlington, Texas area, and so I grew up there. Went through middle school, high school, playing tuba and euphonium, and then went to TCU for my undergrad in performance. Then later at the University of Georgia for my master's in composition. Then moved out to Miami and am completing a DMA there. But I actually live right now near Toronto, Canada, because I work as an assistant professor here in Canada at Wilfrid Laurier University, as well as working what will be in the fall as the new director of jazz here. So life's been moving very quickly and very fast.
Oh,
But
I,
I grew up playing in bands and
oh, I'm sorry. It shouldn't be rude. But do you realize when you were 12 years old, could you have imagined any of this?
no, I would have never imagined that life would have went this direction at all. Leaving Texas, or even better yet, I mean, living in another country. So no, I would have never guessed that. So
It's a lot that's happened to you, right? That you set into motion or things have set into motion. I mean, it's spectacular. And you're not the oldest person I've ever met. Is that a fair statement?
yes, I am 27.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Well, I mean,
yes, yes.
I just, when one reads all that, that's a lot of serious musical achievements. And it's just almost, I think it's very inspiring. It would have to be inspiring to kids to see that could happen.
Yeah, I mean it's been a long road, and I mean my what's been wonderful is I mean and how I even got into music was through my parents, and so my parents are musical as well. My dad was a hip hop producer in late '80s to late '90s in California, later turned a gospel producer, and then my mother was a gospel singer. From West Virginia. So a lot of the music I grew up with happened first with them before I joined the band and then later orchestra. And so yeah, I mean, and they've been very supportive of my journey. They still live in the North Texas area, and so it'll be wonderful to go see them as well when I come to this concert. But they've been very supportive, and I've been there every step of the way. And so that kind of segues into this piece, because the Concerto for Wind Ensemble is a piece that it is a culmination of the genres I grew up with, the music I've played as a jazz musician and as a classical musician, and it's a fusion of all those things together into a piece that is virtuosic, that has lots of melodic ideas, lots of ostinato, but also has this very playful character as well, and has a lot of intricacies to it. So it's a piece I'm very proud of, and I'm super excited to get to present this work with the Dallas Winds very soon. So
Yeah. Well, it's not an easy piece, and a concerto is supposed to stress the abilities and stretch the abilities. And this whole idea of a concerto for wind ensemble has a lot of important roots. I mean, did you think about Bartok's concerto for orchestra, or did you think about all the concertos before you? Was that any influence when you composed it?
it wasn't an influence, but it was definitely a thought. I mean, I'm very familiar with the Bartok Concerto for Orchestra. I'm also familiar with the Concerto for Wind Ensembles by Kurel Husa and Stephen Bryant. And so, yeah, with this piece, I mean, I knew basically because of that I had some pretty hefty shoes to fill if I'm going to call my piece that. And so, but I wanted to make it true and make it authentic to me personally and to the music that has influenced me very heavily. So it's a concerto featuring everybody. Everyone has a solo. Everyone has a feature. Everyone has crazy hard music to play. But it's also about this piece of togetherness as well. And so I'm super excited once again that it's going to have a chance to feature many different parts of the Dallas Winds maybe you have not typically heard featured before.
Yeah. Well, and I want you to tell us the five movements are very significant. You might want to say styles or trends or movements within American music and within 20th century, 21st century music. So could you talk through those? And I'm always curious, did you just wake up one night and movement 4 was in your head or how does that all happen?
Yeah, I mean, so the long story short of this, of how this kind of came to be is, when we made the announcement about this piece in 2019, we were able to get this consortium together of 23 schools and universities from across the U.S. and Canada and in Australia. So it was a big consortium. And then going into it, I knew this was going to be a multi-metered piece in some way. It was originally supposed to be 4 movements. So the 5th movement what ended up being the soul movement, which is movement 4, that was actually the last thing I wrote, because I originally just wrote the first 3 movements, flow, riff, and vibe. Uh-huh. And then I wrote the last movement, jam, and I thought that was the end of the concerto. But then I went back and listened to it and was actually like, you know what, this needs something else. It needs something lyrical, something contrasting. And so the soul movement, the gospel influence movement of this was actually the last one I wrote before I turned in the piece to the consortium. So this was a 2-year process, though. I mean, I started before COVID, and I worked on this piece during, the onset of the pandemic, and continued to work on it and refine it and change it and go through that. So a lot of this, I was just kind of working with it on my own, but. Near the end of it, I mean, I was very happy with this piece that really feels like a true expression of who I am as a person and, all the people who've helped me get to where I am.
Yeah. And not everyone is familiar with the idea of a consortium, which is it's not the Archduke or the Archbishop anymore commissioning a lot of music, is it? It's these groups of ensembles and schools coming together. It seems to be quite a modern thing. Does that add to the pressure? Does that open up doors in your mind that you've got all of these groups interested? How does that play out?
Yeah, I mean, at first it was a bit of pressure. I mean, that was my first big consortium, and it was very successful. But I was like, with that pressure, I'm like, okay, I got to write like something now that hopefully, they'll be happy with and they'll want to play and they'll want to do. So that was there at the beginning of it. But once I started getting into the music and not worrying about that part of it so much, I mean, I was just having a blast. I was just writing music I wanted to write and didn't feel the pressure of it having to be a certain way or it like having to be under like any kind of constraints, really, because this is a piece that has no constraints. It has no limits. And so that was really nice to kind of just have that time to think through what that would look like. And so, yeah, once the piece was over, once the piece was turned in, we premiered it with the University of Georgia, and then has since now led to many performances, led to it being a finalist of various competitions, being considered for this past Pulitzer, and now being played at home with the Dallas Winds. And so I'm super thrilled that this piece is going to kind of return home to where really all of this began.
Oh, that's super. And, just listening to it, as I've been able to on recordings, I was really taken by that, I have to say, the first movement, because one expects something that begins a certain way and ends a certain way. And the ending was a big surprise, very touching. And that shimmering sound, which seems to be kind of one of your trademarks. I don't know if that's true or not, but you love beautiful sounds. I'll tell you, my grandson was walking by while I was listening, to meet you. And he said, "What is that beautiful sound, Grandma?" And that told me a lot. beauty in you and sound. That's important. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very much so. And that beauty and that sound transforms and it changes in various ways in this piece. And so that's one of the areas I explore is like, different textures working together, different instruments working together, different harmonies maybe you haven't heard in a lot of pieces. And so a lot of that is influenced by my jazz background as well. So yeah, I mean it's a thing I was really trying to work on and once again try to refine.
Yeah. Well, it has its life now, and it's going to go off and like a bird flying out of a nest, right? You can't pull it back. It's
Yeah, yeah.
now and 23 other ensembles, right? Oh, that's amazing.
Right,
So
right.
where does it go? I mean, you just, again, as you did at the very beginning, listed all kinds of serious things that are happening in your still, if I may, relatively young life. What does this lead to next? You don't, I mean, what do you do? What do you have on your heart to do next?
There's so many things coming up next, and there's one thing in particular I'm waiting for the press release to announce. I can't announce
Okay.
that on this just yet, but a really big project is coming that I've been kind of waiting to share for quite some time. But the ones I can share, there are more concertos coming. There are more projects that involve different collaborations as far as soloists, as far as vocalists, as far as jazz collaboration. So it's all like really like I'm really excited for what's coming. It's all music that's going to challenge me in various ways, and it'll be wonderful to kind of show that soon. But the newest thing I can share that's going to be coming up recently is the Fort Worth Symphony is going to be premiering my double concerto for trombone, piano, and orchestra next year. And so Robert Spano is going to conduct it, which is going to be really fun. And that piece is being written for Peter Steiner and Constance Hock-Warner, which are two vocalists from Vienna. Sorry, two instrumentalists from Vienna. One plays trombone, one plays piano.
Wow.
And so I'm working on completing that piece right now. The name of that piece is called Departures, and so I'm super excited to share that one very soon. So lots to come and lots to look forward to that I'm just waiting to share in the coming months.
Well, and it really changes what people think about instruments if they thought just stood at the back of the orchestra and made a toot here and there. That's not the world we're in anymore. Everyone has so much to say musically, and it's percussionists and trombone players and all that you're doing. And that surprises a lot of people to hear that much color coming out of an orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's exciting, and like I said, it's music that I never would have imagined writing, and it's projects I would have never imagined getting to do. So yeah, I mean, I can't wait to share more once I can share more
Well,
about what's coming along. But yes.
yeah, no, that's great that you have. It's like the old days, it's an unveiling, which each new piece is, and it keeps everybody really interested in following you. So, well, I think I can imagine you when you come off that plane and your family and everybody's sitting in the Meyerson and all the kids from the bands all around the area and directors, and it is a homecoming for you. So, you better get a lot of rest in the days leading up to it if you can.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, this month before I get to Dallas, I have a few other things that I'm going to be flying to, so it's going to be a bit of a very hectic travel schedule. But I'm very much looking forward to coming back to Dallas and hearing this piece with Dallas Winds and Jerry Junkin. So it's going to be really wonderful.
Well, I know they're looking forward to performing it and bringing it to a new audience. And I just thank you for finding time to visit. And with your professorial and all the things you're doing, I'm sure time is the one thing you really always have to grab at and have peace of mind for composing all these new works. So thank you for sharing some of that.
Of course. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we're going to be counting the days down till this happens and hoping everybody is crammed to the rafters on this concert. And it won't be the last.
Yes.
Time. It won't be the last time.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Y'all take care.